Hello and welcome. The Blues, for the best part of a year, had only beaten North Melbourne and West Coast. That was until Geelong showed up on the schedule, sending the Blues to 3-4 on the year. But this win felt different. Many have commented on Carlton's maturity in this match. Obviously, early in the season, the second half struggles were real. And whilst the starts to quarters in the third and fourth in this game were symptomatic of that, Carlton's response wasn't. And today, we look to break down a showing of growth with this Carlton team, at least in this match. The third and fourth quarters painted two somewhat similar stories. In the third, Geelong's tumble sourced from a starvation of clearance and tackling pressure, which was represented in the pressure rating. Carlton were controlled, winning territory, holding possession due to strong disposal, and being better around the ball. Carlton's defenders feasted on intercept possessions, with Cat's turnover piling up throughout the quarter. In the fourth quarter, the pressure went up a notch. Whilst Geelong smashed Carlton for clearances and kicked goals early in the term from this source, Carlton's defence held up strongly in response, and Carlton's uncontested game with 13 more marks of this variety in the term transferred the game onto Carlton's terms as they controlled the tempo and lowered Geelong's leverage. This is even if Carlton's scoreboard damage was nowhere near as potent as it was in the third quarter. Let's see some key sequences which aided Carlton in their response to these fast starts by Geelong, crucial in deciding the outcome of the game. Here's a good third quarter example where Nick Haynes, who was an intercepting beast, kickstarts this chain from the defensive half. Blake Acres, on the back of defensive 50 stoppage, helps open the play up and takes the man marking Haynes away from him as he locks onto Acres. What in weeks gone by has been a decision-making type lapse, Wiedering swiveling to find Haynes unmarked, is smart as opposed to a disadvantageous kick down the line. That movement across by Acres drags numbers further out. Hollands can run in a similar pattern, which spreads Geelong's personnel in the middle. And that allows not only McGovern to be unmanned, but now you've got the space to drop the ball into for Hewitt, who holds onto this mark crucially. This is where you can spread again as defenders slowly press up down the wings, such as McGovern, who doesn't get tracked, with Geelong still not coping with the back and forth movement. And the lower, flatter kick to advantage means even without a mark, we're given a chance to score, and it can be taken over the boundary with an opportunity to stand ground defensively. Why I argue this play is so imperative is because Carlton did brilliantly at forcing turnover and locking the ball in forward half on the weekend, off the back of some intercepting brilliance, as we've mentioned. This generated a grand total of 67 points from turnover. Carlton's positioning has Geelong on this switch well covered, yet bumping into one another essentially, and not utilising the space that could be of strong benefit. This means that Carlton's representation can essentially multiply. And with players like Haynes at his best, and ensuring his ground level matchup doesn't exploit him with a spilt mark, Carlton commanded territory. We saw what occurred when Haynes' impact was removed and Geelong held ascendancy later on. It allows something of a similar dynamic in the original build-up to function. Carlton used their midfielders and keys to connect, slowly gain ground as the defenders push up, and the others involved can also do the same with a similar movement ahead of the ball. The kick is optimal. It promotes a Charlie leap, and Fogarty forces Stewart to engage with him and plant himself under the ball. Sean Manor has no business contesting, and you get a strong result. What have we seen on this occasion? Strong decision-making and strong execution. Strong execution is on display here too. Mackay gets the tap down and Cripps can feed it to a space of advantage with a 2-on-1 on this side of the stoppage, should they want to attack around this side. We've talked about the absorption of pressure for weeks on end, and Walsh being able to cope with the tackle and feed Cripps has Geelong heavily imbalanced, and now this front of stoppage run is enabled, which has Cripps receive the ball again. We lack the most optimal of outcomes, but yet again, Carlton defensively remains sound for multiple defensive possessions after the fact, with McGovern and Haynes instrumental in this defensive reinforcement. Would you believe this has Carlton secure another shot at goal through Will White, due to this end-to-end scramble and lack of capitalisation by Geelong, which ultimately led to Carlton having 2 extra numbers ahead of the ball. It really helps that Blake Acres actually decided to have a left foot kick this week after some kicking that made my eyes bleed last week. Here's one more late quarter example. You have Geelong giving away a ruck contest free kick, and you'll note Ollie Hollands on Jai Clark to kickstart this sequence, and Hewitt on Atkins. Atkins is a late responder, while Hewitt's already exited out the front of stoppage, meaning that Clark leaves Hollands for that assignment, and then you have a clear ball carrying opportunity. Harry drops the mark, but Carlton force it out of play, meaning rather than a direct clean exit, Carlton can defend the ground again crucially. And even though Carlton surrendered possession to Geelong on the open side, Will White, having sat front and centre, is also able to pursue and cut off run and carry. As White pressures, O'Connor's kick sits up too long, the debutant waits and wants a chest mark, which for Haynes is easy pickings. This is probably a play that just goes to show Carlton's superiority on the day, whilst Geelong definitely were far from the standard. Look no further than Adam Cerra's repeat efforts on this stoppage following a goal from Harry Mackay, which has far more impact than his solo status would indicate. Now, in the fourth, following Geelong's fast start consisting of 3 goals, I think Ollie Hollands was tremendous in a couple of passages. Now, whilst his direct assignment Sean Manor had a fair bit of footy in the early going, Hollands applying this tackle ensured a lack of depth on entry, and with the help of Sard, Carlton could rebound in the opposite direction quite rapidly and get it into their forward half. In that sequence, Cottrell overcooks a handball, but in the midst of messiness, Hollands is clean with it, and Carlton break away and get a shot at goal, albeit fortuitously. Then, as Carlton lock it in their forward half, you'll notice Carlton have sizeable numbers in this sort of patch here. Geelong have sizeable numbers on the boundary line fringe. Hollands is clean with the take and holds off 2 tacklers to get it to Sard. And then the front of the contest, as we alluded to, is maximised, with Walsh, Lord, and then Mackay a part of this patch we highlighted. And yet again, whilst these aren't resulting in maximum outcomes, Geelong weren't amassing massive outcomes from these execution blips either. Much rather, as we've seen, Carlton created scores from turnover at an uncanny rate, and this was all playing into it, which so happens to occur in this situation. On this transition, there is a huge intervention by Carlton defenders. It's a 3-on-3 with Cameron well ahead of McGovern ahead of the ball. If a target is hit and there is a handball receive on offer, this will be a simple execution of a pass for Geelong. Silvani spoils, that plays into an Acres pressure act, which forces in essence a hospital hand pass for Henry, and O'Connor gathers with little momentum in his run, by which point, now the kick is harder to execute, with Cameron dealing with less space in the pocket and McGovern covering off a strong angle. This kick is a shocker, but McGovern not getting clean bowled and then making amends for Silvani's fumble by holding onto the ball and not letting it out. 2 massive moments to ensure Cameron's involvement is lessened on top of those moments that preceded it. He also did this later in the piece after another Silvani error, with Carlton hanging onto a 2-goal lead, collecting the ball cleanly and straight line running to hit a target. With some build-up, ultimately, this gave Carlton their final tremendous goal. And to be honest, these moments sustained itself right the way through, with multiple players taking part, young and old. And I have to say, in the fourth quarter, Carlton's contested marking, massive. When you consider the importance of the territory component and Geelong's woes with these turnovers heading forward which they were guilty of. Harry Mackay, you deserve a round of applause for this. Ultimately, right to the final siren, Carlton produced a superb team performance. They played a suffocating game. With the footy in hand, they were clinical, measured and methodical. Without it, they were bruising, well-structured, and had Geelong in all sorts, holding a dominance in open play which feels like it isn't as emphasised nor as depended on with this Carlton team. And so, even despite some fast Geelong starts in the second half, Carlton wrestled back momentum and consolidated to secure what I'd say is their most impressive win in a hot minute. Special thanks to Haynes and McGovern, who successfully altered their title from villains to heroes, even if it only may be for 1 week, which of course I'm not wishing upon. What do you think was the most important component of Carlton's win on the weekend? This ability to respond? Maybe it was another strong first half performance. Maybe it's some players finding form at the right time. Look forward to reading what you have to say, but that'll be all. We'll chat to you for next week's analysis. Stay safe, and bye for now.